G'day everyone, I'm Ben and this is Counterfeit Christianity. Today I have something a little bit different. It's got my friend Dan. I've talked about him in some previous videos. You haven't seen them yet, Dan, because I have recorded them but I haven't released them. So I've talked about you a little bit. And you've been on one of the episodes ages and ages ago, over a year ago, when you're still on the farm. But yeah, Dan is an ex-pastor. He quit that. We're just talking about this, but we're just men on the way with God and wanting to be relational, wanted to love our family as well, and all that sort of good stuff. But yeah, we have some ideas. We might do this a little bit more often, just to do something different. I don't know. Dan, do you want to start off, or you want me to start off with mine? My journey of listening.
Well, actually, I just had a thought when you're introing that. Because both of us are similar in some ways. Like, I know you were like a professional pastor or anything like that, but having stepped away from traditional Christianity, or whatever you want to call it, institutional church, like a framework. I don't know about you, Ben, but I often feel a lot of relief around that now.
Yeah.
Because I'm freer to think about different things and explore different things, and we talk about stuff all the time. Whereas when I was a traditional pastor, I wasn't allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Because in my case, I'd get in trouble or lose my job, or, you know, there's a real consequence. But the reason why I'm bringing all that up is I think that traditional Christians freak out about that freedom to explore and think and ask different questions and all that sort of stuff. Because what if you get led astray? You know, what if you end up doing or thinking the wrong thing? And for us, because of our relationship with God as our Father, there's a deep trust that He won't let that happen. Like, we're not going to end up some weird cultists who are sacrificing babies, or, you know, I don't know, like weird stuff that people forget about. And that relationship is really anchored in communication, isn't it? Looking to Him and hearing Him talk to us.
Yeah, I think that's, like, you talking about that is probably what I get the most comments from like institutional Christians. I call them cucks, but I'm intentionally being antagonistic on purpose. But they
What's a cuck? What does that mean?
Someone who defers their power, themselves, over to somebody else. Basically, so a cuck is a man who likes to watch somebody else have sex with his wife, and so that's what Christians are. They just sit back, let other people tell them what's true and what's good, and then they just go along with it. And that's why I say Christians are cucks. But I used to be a cuck. I'm not saying that everybody who still is that. I separated myself from that. I've repented.
In the metaphorical sense, you used to be one of those, not in the literal.
Right, not a cuck in the way that you'd let someone have sex with your wife, but I would let everybody tell me what's true and what's right and what's good, and in the way of like, oh, God is this, God is that. I used to live that way, but that's what people say in the comments the most. Is like, oh, you better be careful who you're listening to, and it's like, well, we know who we're listening to because we're in relationship with Him, and He is good. It comes out through the fruit. So you can listen to other gods, but it'll be obvious that they're evil because what they tell you to do will become bad. But yeah,
it's funny that I can agree with that comment in a way, in the sense of, like, we should be careful who we listen to. Absolutely,
yep, I agree.
But I've landed in a much different place, because I used to listen to way too many people, like too many preachers and theologians and other people that would tell me what God is like and how I should think, which is a really weird way of relationship, because, you know, when it comes to my relationship with my wife, and I assume that we relate to God in very similar ways in the sense of He's a person, I didn't have to read books about her or have other people who go, oh, I know your wife before you did, and she's this and that, and that's how you should think it. Like, that's just weird. No one would do that.
I talk about that a lot too. It's like, what sort of God would want you to relate to Him through a book? If that's the way that, and like so many Christians like tell me that I'm evil for saying that, but He wants you. The only way to talk to Him and the only way to connect with Him through a relationship is through a book that somebody else has given you and tells you is Him, basically. I find that really interesting, and it sounds like that's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, the whole book thing, we could do a chat about that one.
A different day, not today. Yeah.
I'm more meaning like I think I've arrived at the only thing we can actually do is to share our experience of God with others, which is it's not authoritative in the sense of it doesn't control or dictate their experience. It might influence it or shape it or go, oh yeah, I've never thought of God in that way. But you get what I mean? Like, I don't think I can speak on behalf of God.
Right.
Like, I've got 6 kids, right? If I found out any of them were running around going, I speak on behalf of this family and I speak on behalf of my dad, and this is how it is. I'd be like, you don't get to do that because there's 5 other kids in the family and I will have a relationship with them too. And you see what I mean? Like, that's how I often think about it. A lot of just things and experiences in this world, that's how I often think about God, because I can't understand if he made the world to work a certain way, why he would be so different.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Sorry to cut you off, but your perspective, right, is different than mine because you came from a place where that was sort of your job. Your job was to tell people what God thought and all that sort of stuff. I know you did it differently than that, but maybe
early on I was very much this is thus saith the Lord type of feeling. Like,
so you're a Presbyterian pastor, weren't you?
That's correct, yes.
And it started in more. Some of our Australian people would understand Moree, and then in Sydney. Is that right?
Well, actually started in some ways in Sydney, and then on the Gold Coast, and then down to Sydney again, and then out to Moree, and then back to Sydney. Yeah, I've been over a fair few places.
A lot of places.
Working in church. And a lot of it was a really good experience. Don't get, like, you know, I've always understood, like, the real importance of people and relationships. And so there's lots of highlights and lots of good friends throughout all that. But there was just this growing, I don't know, I mean, we talked about it before and we might do another chat about it, but I just started asking the what if question.
Yeah.
And some stuff's just common sense as well. Like, just started to experience institutional church and the hierarchy and just started going, this is just dumb. How stupid is this?
Yeah, there's lots of mind viruses. I've said before in a few videos, but they have mind viruses in many different places of our life. So we have like the world global mind virus where they tell things to do and you do it. But then they have an institutional religious mind virus too, where they just say it and therefore it is. And then we just go along with it. So that's like part of the journey that I've been on as well, is like realizing what makes sense and what doesn't. I'm still on that journey of like which parts of it are good and which parts of it are just parts of man that have been added and removed and taken from and all that sort of different thing. But like you said, we won't talk about it today. It's really interesting to me, like that, how we have to like figure this out on our own. And some people just don't ever say what if, so they won't like separate themselves from their system.
My initial reaction to that stuff you're saying about the Bible, like, has anything been added? At the end of the day, no one actually knows. They've got theories and thoughts, but like I wasn't around 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
Like I don't, like no one, anyway, you know what I mean? There's a lot of confidence that religious people have, Christian people have, even Muslims and lots of other different types of religions.
Yeah.
There's a lot of confidence they have in their tradition and their holy writings and stuff like that, which I begin to wonder, does that actually come out of a place of insecurity and fear?
Oh, I think it does.
Connected to God. Because,
that's the thing. Like we're talking about that. It's absolutely makes sense, because I've talked about it in the past, and I think this is probably will bring us into this topic of listening. But I draw my security from my relationship. I call him Daddy, from our Daddy, from the living God, our Creator. I draw my security from him now because of the relationship that I have with him. It's so intense. It's every part of my life. But I think religious people draw it from their religion and from the things that they know. This is what I have been told is truth, so I know this, I'm secure in that. But people who are outside of that draw their security from the relationship. So maybe we should say, how has listening to God changed your life? And you said you told me before that you started along this journey while you were a pastor.
Yeah, so the background I'm from is very much Bible only.
Yep.
And I don't know the timing of all this, but I started to recognize that even people from within that tradition still had experiences of God. They had a leading, or a God led me to do this or led me to do that. They have this inner awareness that God was more intimately involved in their life. But then when you start asking the more concrete questions of, well, does God speak?
Yep.
It gets very technical. Well, how does he speak? And he can't speak this way and he has to speak this way.
Yeah.
And then lots of people are like, no, it's only through the Bible, only through preaching. That is where you hear God speak.
Is that like I think Luther taught that, didn't he? That's what as his big thing.
Yeah, he was big on the word, on scripture.
And then preaching and stuff like that. It was really important to him.
Big on preaching. But the irony in some ways, like during the Reformation, there were good things that happened because the Catholic Church was crazy, like batshit crazy, some of the stuff they did. And it was Luther reading the Bible that helped him go, oh, hang on a sec. That's not quite what God is like, or God says, or, Jesus was all about this. Why are you guys doing all that? That sort of thing.
But at the same time, he killed the Anabaptists, so that was interesting.
I know, and then you just go, what the actual hell is going on? We have to talk about that at some point, because that's been a really awakening moment, reading about what Protestant and Catholic people did to Anabaptists. But I've always had a connection, probably because of my mum and some of her more supernatural experiences, if you'd call it that. Like, briefly, just things like she was lost in a supermarket or a shopping center or somewhere in a big crowd, and she couldn't find her parents, and she felt someone, pull her shoulder to turn her around, and there was no one there who did it, but, she always said, I think it was an angel, and, so those sorts of stories made me open up my wonder to, the things that can't be seen.
Yeah.
But
started you thinking, what if already a long time ago? Yeah.
Well, I just had a relationship with this God. I used to pray to him and ask stuff, and like big prayers too, like really, but it's a journey. I didn't know God back then the way I know God now. Yeah. It's deepened and enriched.
It's incremental. It just goes, he just reveals himself more and more every single day that you're with him.
Yeah. But I would say at some point I was like, I wanted God to relate to me more than what I had experienced or known. And then that took me on a journey to read thoughts from other people and all that sort of stuff. And those people will point out very quickly that, hey, even in the Bible, so for people who say God only speaks through the Bible, even in the Bible, the testimonies in there indicate that that's not true, because he spoke lots of different ways. Like they had dreams and visions and all sorts of things. And God would often show up in the testimony of the stories in the Bible to people in moments of distress, for example. And so I've experienced God in that way. Call it faith, I guess. It's an assumption that if God is good, which is if you end up saying, no, God isn't good, that's a very, I think, sad place to land, because then what hope do we have? If there is a God who made the world and he's not good, then we're all screwed, really.
That's right, yeah.
Sucks to be us. But if he is good, which I think is a much happier assumption to make, look, and I understand why people make the other assumption that God's bad. It's their experience. But if God is good, I can trust him. And if I ask him questions and I need answers, it's never let me down so far. I just assume he's going to help me in there. Give me the thoughts, or I always get thoughts. I don't get visions much or anything like that. It's always just thoughts. And so I just assume that, that is God. And so far, I haven't ever had really any terribly evil thoughts where I've gone, oh, God told me to go, murder people or something. So that fear that a lot of Christians go on about, it hasn't happened.
It's very easily prevented too, because where I learned how to listen, it's like, pay attention to those things, those thoughts, those pictures, those things that flow through your mind, and bounce it off. Is it good or is it evil? Like, it's pretty easy. Yeah. It's like, if it's good, then it's him, and if it's not, it's another God. It's one of the others. Yeah. And it's are you internally, are you a good person? Then you'll be able to understand if it's good or not. And most of us maybe are. That's
a potentially very controversial statement, if internally you're a good person. Because I was taught, growing up and so forth, that I wasn't.
I know, I was taught the same thing. Person. I thought that I was taught that I was evil. Yeah.
And look, I can accept that to a degree, because I do think some people are.
Some are
evil. Again, I'll get into the story in the Bible that it talks about how God is going to give a different heart, or a new heart, to people who are with him. And the difference will be that the people with that kind of heart will be able to stay with him and remain with him and be faithful, and not through fear go and chase after, because that's really the big thing in the Old Testament with Israel, continually going after other gods and doing stuff for them. It's essentially a fear. It's a protectiveness. It's they're trying to make their way in this world as best as they know, and they just fall in the trap of going to the other gods for stuff that they need, rather than to the big God, the main God, the real God.
I think they do it because they work a little bit differently. I talk about it a lot, but this idea that I think the Creator, he wants us to flow with him and be okay with his timing, his pacing, the way that he wants to do it, and us just be like, okay, I have to be with you. The other gods give you what you want. If you worship them, do specific things for them, they will give it to you.
There's no doubt, though, that I've changed the kind of person I am over time, or God's changed me, maybe you'd say. Yeah. To use the old-fashioned terms, I have been convicted, over things. I probably used to be a bit of an asshole and a bit, shit on people pretty quick.
Yep, same journey here.
So there has been that change. But I guess it comes down to the shift in my thinking is, does God want me to be like him? And if the answer is yes, then I can either try and do that myself, which
Exactly, yeah.
I don't know if that ever works, or I can just be with God and do it with God and his help.
In his timing. That's the hardest part, I find. His timing, yeah.
And that's been a very different journey, I suppose.
Yeah, it's really different. The journey of like, you're bad, you have to fix yourself so you can be with God, or realizing, okay, I don't know anything, I just want to be with him, and then intentionally being with him, and then he will progressively, incrementally change you into things that are more like him as you flow with him. That's a difference. I feel like Christianity, and probably all religions, say in order to be with God, you have to be this thing. And so everyone puts on a face to be this thing. And then in their hearts, they're no different, because you can't be different inside of it. But then the person who wants to be with God on the way, the human being, the man, the woman who wants to be with God, will go, God, I want to be with you. And then slowly but surely he will bring you. I think that that's what I try to encourage people with on this channel is, if you want to be with God, tell him, just say, I want to be with you. Show me what's next. Show me how to be. Show me how to live. Show me how to possibly do things. I think usually doing comes much, much, much later. Usually it's just learning how to be. How do I be okay with me, who I am? How do I be okay in a relationship with you and the people around me? I think that's, for me, that's been this journey over the last decade of learning how to be. It's so hard because we're told being is bad. You can't just be. You got to do it.
Yeah. And it is hard. Like, you know, our friendship over the years, if I want to know something, right, of you, I just ask you a question and you tell me, right?
Yeah.
It's not as simple as that with God. I get that, because I can't see him, I can't touch him, I can experience him, and I'm definitely sure that's true. But so there is that difficulty. There's that yeah, and I understand that. But I would say if someone wants to be with God and learn to hear from him, is just start asking questions. I mean,
and then he'll show you the way through many different things in your life. Things will pop up in front of you, like videos, people who are speaking about it specifically, people who you might run into in real life. The way will open up. It will just happen.
And when people are afraid of, well, if I do that, then what if I hear the devil? Or God tells me to do something bad. Like, I mean, I know it happens. I know there's people out there who say stuff like that all the time. I am God, or I know there's people out there who's like, God told me to divorce my wife and marry another one. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, the tears on your first wife's face might indicate that that's not from God. But yeah, again, that's just fear. Like, God has never told me do bad stuff. That's my testimony.
That idea of God telling us to do things we don't want to do comes from Christianity as well, because we think that he wants us to do stuff instead of just be yourself. I like to say worshiping God is being yourself. Like, the dreams and desires that you have been given to you by him, because we are his children. And so those deep down things inside of us, if they're good, they're from him. And so he wants you to be and do those things that you want to do. A lot of people say that that's evil. You got to do what God tells you to do. But from my experience, he tells me to do the things that I want to do. And then he is with me on those journeys. But it's not like, God, come and do this thing for me. It's like, oh, I am learning that I am okay. I'm okay. And he's okay with me. And I'm okay just to be.
Yeah.
The beginning of this journey for me was just like, just be. He's telling me, just be yourself. Be with me. And then after that has slowly but surely changed. And usually the things that you want to do, that's because he put them there. Unless, like you said, go and kill somebody, then that's probably not. Yeah, but he has done that in the past. He has told people to kill people in the past. Possibly, but who knows? Maybe there's something.
You mean like in the Bible?
Yeah, like we don't know if God actually told them to do that. Like, that could just be them validating why they did it. So that's a fun conversation for another day as well.
Well, yeah, that stirs a lot of people up, those things in the Bible.
Yeah.
At least I can say God's never told me personally.
Yeah, me either. Every time I feel like I want to kick the shit out of someone, he's like, don't do it, you idiot. You're a fucking loser. Just chill the fuck out, dickhead. That's what he does to me usually. Because I'm all naturally, not naturally, I think I've been indoctrinated into this place of anger. So my anger comes from fear. So I've always thought like, I'll just fight my way out of this box, but it never worked. He's brought me back into being really gentle and joy. That's who he brought me.
Here's an explosive question. Is there any such thing as good anger?
Yeah, of course.
Well, it's hard because the simple thing you get taught is no, all anger is bad.
I think it's important.
All telling lies is bad. Like, you can never tell a lie. And that, I grew up with that and used to think that. And then I still get shocked when people go, yeah, no, that's true. Like, can't ever tell a lie. And I'm like, so I don't know, those people who lied to German soldiers, are you hiding any Jews? That's bad. Like, they should have gone, actually, I'm a Christian. They're in the basement. I'll help you drag them out so you can murder them.
Yeah.
That's good. It's just, it's just wacky.
It's interesting, isn't it? So it's just like being told a worldview or being told what's right and good. It's very dangerous. You have to be like, that's why listening to God is the safest way to live, because he'll tell you what to do in every situation.
Yeah. The rule-based approach, come up with all the rules and just do the rules. It's a safe way. There's a very unrelational way.
Yeah, it feels like hell to me.
Well, as if you go back to you should never tell lies. That's the watertight rule, never changes, no exceptions. It can make you feel like, oh, life's easy. It's easy to navigate. I always know what I should do. And that feels safe and that feels easier than maybe the other path, which is a more relational one and having to navigate him. Well, but life is complicated. You don't need to have any, I don't know, relationship with God to discover it's complicated.
Yeah.
Weird stuff happens all the time. Like maybe life, well, at least the world we experience, isn't supposed to be just simple and just follow the rules and everything will work out. Like it doesn't seem like that makes much sense.
No, it doesn't make sense at all. Yeah.
Which makes needing to have a really close relationship with God as a father, as that intimate, like I'm his son and he actually really likes me.
Yeah.
Doesn't hate me. And
we don't understand it because most of our families were really, really unhealthy. And so we don't know what that feels like. We have no experience of what it's like to have a good dad. Most of us. Yeah.
I could share something that happened recently. Like we're speaking about dads in a sense and how we grew up. I grew up without a dad by and large. Like I think I was 10 or 11 or something when my dad left. As I didn't grow up with a dad. I didn't grow up learning to be a son to a father. And so something God said to me not that long ago, it was a while ago now, like maybe 6 months or something, was just that. You don't know how to be a son to a father to me. And so I want you to learn how to do that. That was it. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I
remember you talking about that.
That's what I'll try and do. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. If anyone thinks that's bad, I want them to explain to me how that's bad. The people who were like, oh, God doesn't speak to you that way. God doesn't help me understand why that's bad and how that is going to hurt me or make me do weird, crazy stuff. Because I guess I don't get it. Because that made perfect sense to me when he said it. That's one of the reasons that is God. Because it's just, it's true. Yep. I'd never thought of it before, but it is true. I spent most of my life without a relationship with a dad. So I don't really know what it means to be a son to a father. And he's like, I want you to learn that so we can have a better relationship.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. It does. Lots of like negative things have happened, not huge negative things, but like hard, tough things have happened to me in my life recently. About it, but it's like a lot of my work has changed and flowed. And it's been really kind of depressing for me. But all through that, I've been getting back to joy every single day. And now I know what's next. He's like, and I've talked about it in videos before this, but they haven't been released yet. But the next thing is setting up a website that people can come and we can have real, authentic conversations. And that's what I'm right in the process of today, is putting that website together. It's hard for me. So God's like, he's really encouraging me to get this stuff done. And it's because it's popped up. And when I made a video, I still don't think it's out, but it's like probably the day when all this stuff sort of changed in my life, my work changed dramatically. And then God said to me, wait and see. By the time this video comes out, you'll know what's next. And it hasn't come out yet, and I know what's next. And it's just like, I have to be okay just to be with him and flow. So he encourages me daily. He's like, oh, just chill out. Like, it's okay. I'm still with you. Nothing's changed. Just be with me. Everything will be good. I bring good things. I am your daddy. And it's like, that's what he says to me all the time. Because my nervous mind that's been indoctrinated into me brings me to fear naturally. And that's my natural reaction to things is fear and anger. But he brings me to peace and joy. And so that is what he talked to me recently about. And I'm trying to act on it bit by bit. And luckily he tells me before, it's like, he's a just-in-time God. I've got enough time to get it done. It's good.
And I think, adding to that, like that fear you're talking about and that anxiety you experience, it's not good, but it's not bad, as in like you're not weird. No. He's not like going, oh, you are so weird. Like, why are you worried? It's normal. Your work just dried up and like it changed all of a sudden and you don't have as much money as you like. They're all very normal. That's what I mean by life being complicated. It's not. And
it's okay to feel these things. We're not allowed to feel it in our institutions, but he wants us to feel it.
Well, a lot of Christians in some of those churches get told the opposite. If you do basically, it might not be said explicitly like this, but I think this is a fair representation of the message. If you do right by God, if you do the right things that he wants you to do and believe the right stuff and have faith.
Pay 10%, 20%.
Yeah, tithe to the church. It will be smooth sailing. You will get healing. You will get this. You will get that. And I'm just like,
and then when it doesn't come, it's their fault. You didn't do something.
Yeah, you don't have faith. But that's where I'm like, where I always come back to is read the Bible. Like that's not a reflection of the Christians who've written some of that stuff. Like, I always think of Paul. Paul got the shit beaten out of him in every city he went to.
Yep.
And I'm like, how is that smooth sailing? Like, he got shipwrecked, and one of the times he got shipwrecked, he was on an island, he got bitten by a snake. He didn't die, but he still got bitten by a friggin' snake. Like, how is that? He had
multiple shipwrecks, didn't he? Life is
life
is hectic.
Or something.
Yeah.
So I'm like, it just doesn't add up. I think there's a lot of bullshit that gets spread, in the name of God. That this
talk about anger.
Dumb people.
That's where I am. That's where my anger is focused at these. They're evil. They are absolute Satanists that do this to people inside of these Christian circles. They tell you this stuff. It's the most evil thing that anyone can do to another human being. Yeah. It's foul. I hate it so much. Yeah. And it's like, that is good anger, in my opinion. I'm angry at these people for trying to destroy other humans. And that's what they're doing.
You get angry at the people who believe it?
No, because I used to believe it. It's like, it's a journey. Yeah. Like, I believe that stuff, and then I have to get out of it. I'm angry at the people who intentionally do it. And that's the most, this is probably, we could talk about this. I'll write it down, but this perspective of like intentional pastors that intentionally do this to people because they know, or they need it. They need the money because it's their job or whatever. Yeah. And I'm angry at those dudes. Yeah.
We could definitely talk about that, because there is a few different, like, I don't think every pastor's the same. Like, in this, what we're talking about now, I'm thinking about like the mega church pastors who are flying private.
I agree, they're not jets. The same. Some of them are trying to do good.
Yeah.
But that would be cool. Let's not talk about it today. Let's talk about it, because I wrote that down. But yeah. But maybe, I
was going to say, like, because those dodgy churches, the big ones, in America and places like that, they're full of thousands of people. And, we're talking about listening to God. I just wonder if they ever said, God, is any of this true?
I think they know it's not true. They fucking know it.
Do you actually want me part of this thing? Like, listen to this dude up here talking about his private jets and crap like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not talking even
the
about
people
pastors,
don't know. The people don't know. The pastors know. Yeah.
So, but maybe there's a complicity in all that what they're representing is what that person wants.
Yeah.
And maybe there is a place to challenge that in the world generally. Like, money is a huge thing in the West, right? Like, people want to be rich, want to have all these things, because deep down, I think a lot of it is either I want power, or I just want to be safe and protected. I don't want bad things to happen to me. And if I've got money, I can, that will not happen. And so I get it to a degree, but like maybe those people are those big mega churches that I'm talking about with all the dodgy stuff that goes on. Yeah, maybe this sounds really bad, but maybe people get what they deserve in a sense. Because if they're willing to go, I want to be like that, then they're opening themselves up to.
They have an agenda as well. Yeah.
Believe stupid stuff. And that's what I meant. Like, this whole practice of listening to God, genuinely listening to God. Yeah, maybe a lot more people will be like, maybe that's not good. Or maybe God, maybe God doesn't actually want me to, strive to buy my $10 million house and my fancy cars, because maybe that's not the best life. You know what I mean? Like, we've talked about, I think I said it earlier, like, often in times of distress is when I really learnt to listen to God, because I needed help. Maybe if I didn't have those bad things that happened, I would never have had that need for God.
No, I think you're right. Yeah, that's why it's so. We struggle so much in our Western cultures, don't we? Because we're so well off.
And I'm not saying at that point that God's like, oh, you need to learn to need me more, so I'm going to do some bad stuff to you.
Right. It's just part of life. Yeah.
That bad stuff that did happen is probably the catalyst for me wanting to know God more and more, which is good, which has been better. So maybe I can say that bad stuff was worth it because of the result of knowing God more.
I've said that the same in my own life. Is like, I'm so glad now when I have perspective, looking back, possibly God's perspective. I wouldn't have it if I hadn't have a connection with him. But it's like the worst demonic, evil things that happened to me in my life, have become the best because it's given me an understanding. His understanding has come out of that, and I'm absolutely free. My family's free because of those things. I think that's because he makes everything good, and that's the only answer I've got for it. But this world's not, he doesn't own the world. He's only with those people who are with him.
Knowing him as father, I guess, has been helpful to me too, because obviously I've talked to him a lot in the past and wanted different stuff from him, you know, do this, do that kind of thing. And he doesn't always, sometimes he says no. And I have had senses, very clear senses that go like, no, that's not for you. And the only reason why that hasn't bummed me out and go, well, you know, screw you, I'm going, is because I understand that as a dad. Like I tell my kids all the time, no. Yeah. It's not because I hate them. It's because I want what's best for them.
Yeah, and you can see a bigger picture than they can. Yeah,
that wouldn't be the case if I didn't have that connection to God.
Oh, he said it to me this week multiple times. I'm like, "Do you want me? Should I do this or do this?" And he's like, "No, don't do that yet." And then usually says, "Not yet, not yet." And maybe sometimes he just keeps saying that to help me understand that no, never. But he usually says, "No, don't do it now." And then we move on, and then I see what's good. This was a fun conversation, and we're going to do it. We're going to do it more. Even since we've been having this conversation, I wrote down 10 more things. But yeah. So we have a Discord in the description. Jump down there. Dan and I were talking before. If anybody wants to come and have a conversation, we might even be able to do it with you as well, Dan. I'm open to doing anything on this channel, and I want to have conversations and chats with people, and we'll record it and throw it on the channel as well. If you want to do that, let me know in the Discord conversation, the Discord chat underneath, and we can figure it out.
That's a huge part for both of us of our journey with God, is just being okay with other people's experiences, even if it's different, right? Even if it's
glad to be with each other, no matter what. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've had certain experiences with traditional Christianity, and Ben, you've had your own, and often they've been different, and that's okay. I have no right to say to you, Ben, like, oh, you're wrong, because my experience was different. Like, duh, of course it is. Like, and so, other people coming on and sharing their story and their experience would be really cool.
Yeah.
And we get to practice this thing, Ben, you're like talking about, glad to be with people no matter what. No matter how weird it might be, it's kind of still good to hear your story and how you've experience God, and you know, I think it's all good. It's all
I
healthy.
agree. It is all good. I love it. It's not, I never used to love it, but I've repented from being a Christian, so now I do love it.
We got to talk about that, repenting from being a Christian. I thought you had to repent to become a Christian. Man, you're just confusing me.
Yeah, awesome. Anyway, we'll leave it at that. See you guys.
All right, dude. See ya.